Hello, everyone. Bert Langell here, your English coach. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time, and I know you will learn some good things from this class today. I hope everyone's well and having a good week. So, first of all, what I'm, I always like to talk about what I'm reading. This is a very interesting book. Maybe if you're being overwhelmed with work and that, there's some good messages in it. Essentialism. So focus on what's really important and what we do well. Now, today we're going to talk about storytelling. Do you think storytelling is important? And first of all, please let me know in the comments if you can hear me, see me okay, if I've got my volume at the right level. I'd like to know. And please introduce yourself. I can't see who's with me this morning. It's morning for me, and I know it could be afternoon or nighttime for you. That would be great. And I'm just going to continue through my slides. And so let me know if you can hear me and introduce yourself. Let me know, interact. I live in Nova Scotia, Canada, on the Atlantic Ocean, sort of northeast of New York and Boston, east of Toronto and Montreal here in Canada. It's a small province, about 1 million people. Industries are fishing and travel, tourism, universities, IT, a lot of IT industry here, universities, hospitals, and everything. So that's me. I live in the countryside, just outside the city. So I take my dog to the beach every day. It's a beautiful place. We don't get a lot of winter here too, which is kind of nice. Now, why do we want to tell and hear stories? What's the purpose? Well, storytelling builds connections, doesn't it? It is a simple way to deliver a complex idea often. Storytelling is essential for good business communications. The best business people are good storytellers, not just business people, politicians, friends, family, everything. We're always telling stories. You're probably telling stories in your own language. Hello, Martin. Thanks for coming. Cybersecurity key account manager in Latin America, in Argentina. I'd love to go to Argentina. I hear Buenos Aires is a beautiful city. I've only been, I spent a lot of time in Colombia and some time in Ecuador, and that's as far south as I've gotten in South America. But I'll tell you, I'd love to go there. Some people are nervous about speaking up at meetings and during recordings and on social media. We're afraid that we're giving away too much information, and we hear so much about cybersecurity today, and that's a valid concern. However, if we don't share, we don't have to share personal identifying information, but if we don't share little things about us, we can't build those deep relationships. It's how people get to know us, to learn something about our childhood or what made us what we are today. And we use stories for this. And stories should be short, very short, 4 or 5 sentences. I changed my way of thinking because this happened to me. This was very terrifying when it happened, but through my struggles, I grew in some way, some kind of story like that. There are many ways to tell stories. It's interesting too that when we hear a story, when we truly react, emotions are everything. We think we're rational beings, but we're really emotional beings. People buy for emotional reasons, and they justify it by rationalizing. And stories were survival technique. Cave people were probably, I know they were, we can tell by the drawings that they used stories to talk about their hunting and their conflict with other tribes and surviving in harsh conditions and letting people know what was dangerous and what was good. We use them to persuade. We want to change behavior, but we don't want to offend them or something. So we tell a story of how somebody else used a certain technique to achieve a result. And Rachel, thank you for coming. Good morning to you too, from Brazil, channel sales director. So cool. I love this idea of multi-channel. It's just so hard to keep up with everything that's happening in AI today, and managing our social media content, blogging, and, and YouTube. And check out my YouTube channel, Bert's IT and Business English. I put a lot of videos up. And it's a pretty new channel, so there aren't a lot of viewers. So any comments and likes and that will be greatly appreciated. I'm just after this meeting, I'm putting up a new video about English for meetings. Some really good tips. I hope you'll like it. My students seem to like some of the ideas. Oh, now that's a that's a connecting word. That's kind of a transition word. The hero's journey. We've often heard about the helper and the hero. If we're a consultant, we're helping people. I'm a helper. I help people speak better English to advance their careers, to make more money, be more successful, have a better lifestyle. I'm a helper. But you are the hero. You are the one that delivers the result by working hard and mastering your English skills. And using stories is a very important skill. And I can help you, but I can't make you do something. We say in English, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink, right? So that's kind of the helper and the hero story. Now, in this case, it's most stories, many stories are about overcoming obstacles, gaining wisdom through experience. Have you used these stories? Do you use them in your own language? I'm just managing my slides here too. So please introduce yourself. If you have any questions, just let me know. Put it as a question at the beginning in the comments so I can react more quickly to it. And there is a delay with LinkedIn. There's a 15-second delay, so it kind of makes it a little more complicated. How often do you use English in meetings? Think about this. Do meeting skills, are they important to your career? I'm sure they are. If you're working with a global company, or if you wish to work with a global company, English is essential, isn't it? Perhaps someday it'll be Mandarin, but at this point, it's English. Overcoming adversity. I'm sure many of you have had interviews for jobs and that, and the interviewer probably asked you a behavioral question. Tell me about your worst day at work. Tell me about a failure and how you overcame it. What they're really trying to do is understand you, get a glimpse of your life, and they're asking you to tell them a story, aren't they? This story, I'd say, try to do it in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just like tell me about yourself. So we use the STAR technique: situation, task, action, result. I had a friend, and his father died when he was 11 years old, and I was in university with him. He worked hard. He was kind of an average student. But after that, he went to work for one of the big banks here in Canada. And he worked hard, but he worked smart. He became the vice chairman of that bank. That's a true story. One of the biggest banks in Canada. And then they asked him to be CEO, president of a bank in the US that they owned. And when the banks were collapsing, he was asked to distribute the $700 billion to the other banks. So this guy from Halifax, through hard work and that, and having a disadvantage, having gone through some real turmoil, he reached the pinnacle. He ended up being CEO of one of the largest banks in the US after being vice chairman of one of Canada's biggest banks. And this is a story about overcoming adversity. That's probably a longer story than I should tell at a business meeting, but it does demonstrate something. Discovery stories. How about this? So, Martin, all the time, I bet in cybersecurity, it's really good to tell a story, isn't it? I met a business person who recently became a client, and they weren't using version backups. And they didn't even have maybe deep Glacier plus very quick to recover backups. This is what happened. This was a disaster for this client. I really recommend that you consider having a number of versions of backups so that we can back you up to before you're attacked by ransomware or whatever. So cybersecurity storytelling is essential, isn't it? Thanks for the tip there, Martin. Spark attention and get details about something. So true. How about cautionary tale? I bet those among us who are parents have told cautionary stories to our children. A friend of mine did this, and this is what happened. It wasn't a good situation. Please don't do this. Or one of my clients happened to do this, happened to hit a certain link, and it ended up being a phishing attack. And there was a Trojan delivered, and it was a huge financial problem, and they had a breach of security, lost, somebody entered their database, and it went on and on. Yeah. A visionary story. How can we move from okay English, maybe being an intermediate English speaker, to being an advanced business speaker? In English teaching, we say it's not that difficult to get to intermediate level, but it's quite a challenge in general terms to get to be an advanced speaker. However, for business English, it's not so difficult because it's so predictable. So you can move from intermediate to advanced skills. However, we always need to be a learner, don't we? The why story. There's an idea that it takes 5 whys to get to the real reason of a problem or a symptom. People deliver symptoms, but until we ask them why this symptom, why this problem developed, and we keep asking, until that point, we really don't often find the core problem, the core cause. Now, one time I took my sailboat, I sailed to the Caribbean, and I sat in the Caribbean for 5 years. And I discovered that, it's nice to sit on a beach, it's nice to do these things. But I realized I had to get back to work. I just didn't have a purpose. So you could ask me, well, why did you do that, Bert? Why would you leave something you love doing? And my only comment would be, and this is kind of trying to say I'm smart, but smart people do stupid things sometimes. And maybe that's a story. How about the underdog story? How many sports movies have you seen where there's a basketball team or a football team and they're fighting amongst each other? They're not functioning as a team. Everybody wants the spotlight. They're out carousing at night, drinking, and hardly showing up for important games, just plain failing, disorganized. And then they get a coach. The coach sets them right and works them really hard, and they suffer and they have to work hard, but they start to pull together as a team. And maybe the team is a little angry with the coach because the coach is pushing them so hard. But then they start to win games, and then they win a championship. Imagine. Have you heard this story before? I'm sure you have. We love the underdog story. Some politician that comes from behind and just takes over. I think probably President Obama was that way during his campaign. People didn't expect him to become the president of the United States and be there for 2 terms. And listen to his speeches. I think he is a fantastic speaker. I love the way he uses pauses and tells stories and really, really works with the audience. You'll see him moving his head around, looking at the audience. He's using his hands. I think he's just the perfect speaker. Social proof. How many times have we heard this? We need to use social proof for our websites, for our social media. People want to know that other people trust the person. We want to hear people give reviews, don't we? It's a mistake I make sometimes. I'm not constantly asking my clients for reviews, and I know I should do it, but I'm busy, and sometimes I forget about those little things. This is kind of a retirement project for me. I just like helping people. So social proof is essential. The personal journey. Yeah, talk about our own story. At one point, sometimes I feel embarrassed about telling my story, but I struggled. I happened to do very well. My brother and I started a public company. I made multi-millions of dollars. Then I managed to make some bad investments, and 2008 came along, and most of that money disappeared. But that's all right. I realized after that what's really important. And I've had a lot of success since that point. And I realize it's what's up here, is who you are, that's important. That being an entrepreneur, there are little potholes along the way. And we go through these things. And I would say I have learned more from business failures than I've learned from business successes. And I've had some big successes and I've had some momentous failures before, but that, c'est la vie, right? That is life. Cultural, historic tales. Many of my students are from the Far East, and many are from South America and Europe. In North America, many immigrants to Canada and US come to me for help for exams and different things, or just advice on immigration. And by the way, one of my students from Brazil that moved to Canada last September will be with me next Thursday talking about the immigration process, having a startup company here in Canada, as being a software developer and expert in IT management, and applying these skills in Canada, and what it was like to bring the family here, the whole thing. I think you'll find it really interesting. Daniel's a great guy. He's a good friend of mine, and he actually moved to my city, and he has some very interesting experiences. A week after he arrived, we had a big hurricane come through. And this spring, we had a huge forest fire in our community. 200 houses were destroyed by a forest fire. You would think that Nova Scotia is the wildest place on earth, but it's actually very benign. However, the last 12 months have been kind of horrendous. So Daniel will have some good stories for you. He's a great guy and speaks good English, and he can contrast life in Brazil versus life here in Canada, and the IT industry here in Canada versus Brazil. I know you'll find a very interesting presentation. Today, I'd like to offer you my 7-day small talk mastery course. And I keep adding to the course. And when you participate in the course, you can also join the community. There aren't a lot of people in it right now. I've just started offering this in the last week or so. But small talk is essential for good business in English or in any language, isn't it? But in North America, we do a lot of small talk. And I guess actually in South America, maybe people do more small talk because you're so focused on family so much more even than we are here in North America. But breaking the ice, active listening, storytelling, finding common ground, handling hard topics, body language, putting it all together. And then we'll have a live Zoom coaching class together. And I'll probably drop in and I'll be answering questions throughout the course. So it's delivered to you by email. And each day you'll get emails and you'll get the video courses, and I'll send you bonus videos and that to help. And of course, I do this so I get people to join my newsletter, and some people become clients of mine, or I just help them in other ways. That's what I do. That's that's what I love doing. And the other offer, well, I didn't mean to add this. Okay, this is a 10-week course that was developed by a friend of mine. And I used this as a kind of a base, a baseline to help people. And it covers all the essential things that you need for business English. It's designed for upper intermediate and advanced English speaker students who have general knowledge, but really need to fill out the nuances of their business English. I guarantee this will make a big difference. I deliver as one class a week. Every Saturday, we have a community meeting for all my present and past students where practice English, and assignments every week and readings. And I ask you to send me recordings of yourself, just 1-2-minute recordings during the week. And through this 10-week process, we absolutely transform your English. And I've gone through this with many students. I've had hundreds of students for the last 4 years, and I've been in business for 30 some years. And much of the time I was mentoring people, and with our offices in Mauritius and Colombia, many of them were foreign English speakers. So I've had a lot of experience, and it's been a great pleasure for me. Does anybody have questions? I'm just talking so much. That's kind of a problem with these live sessions. I wish I could do a Zoom meeting on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook, but the live sessions are not really set up for that. Perhaps some week I'll announce a Zoom meeting, and I'll put a link, and anybody who wants to come in can drop in, and I can see your faces and you can speak. And maybe I'll do it early next week sometime. Would people like that? Would you attend a half-hour Zoom meeting and speak English, put yourself on camera. How about it? I really appreciate it. Anybody have any comments? Let me know what you're thinking. Speak to me. Don't let me be lonely. And so, how often do you use English at meetings? Tell me. How important is English to your career? And I appreciate everybody that's spoken so far. Rachel, tell me something. Make a comment, ask a question. Martin, and I know there's a lot of other people here. We, to get good at English, people like to study. All my students came from academic backgrounds. They all have bachelor degrees, master's degrees. Some of them have PhDs, and it's an environment of studying and, of course, talking in that. But most of them go to books. Most of them have been taught to use complex English and complex ideas and translate. But when you get to the intermediate level, what's important is the doing, and write and speak and listen and just do as much. 90% of your time should be practicing your speaking, your listening, your writing, comparing it with ChatGPT. I invite you to send me a recording. Hey, DM me. I'll listen to your recording. I'll do a free assessment for you. And then we can actually develop a plan. I do a free half-hour assessment and planning session for students. For anybody that's interested, I don't ask you to subscribe to one of my courses. It's something I do. This is how I build relationships, and eventually relationships sometimes become business relationships. And most of my students are friends. I'm constantly speaking with past students, and they're messaging me about how their careers are going. A lot of what I do is business consulting and career consulting. And if I can mentor you in some way, that's great. I don't charge for mentoring. I don't charge for giving business advice. Often it comes up during our meetings, but the focus is to move your English, to transition it to a higher level. I feel like I'm rambling. Anybody have further comments? Any questions? Come on, give me something I can bite into. If there's nothing else, I'm going to end the broadcast. So just any comments, anything further? And don't forget storytelling. And if you like, just send me a DM or comments or whatever, and I'll be glad to send you the slides I used today. It's in Canva. I love Canva. But I think I can probably download them to Google Slides or some other medium, or I can send you a link for Canva if you use Canva. Many people do. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time you spent with me today. Have a great day and have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye.